Nier, released in 2010 and developed by Cavia, gained mediocre reviews when it was released. The one thing I remember most about those reviews is the common statement that the main character, Nier, was rather ugly. Of course, he, named whatever you name him, is rather ugly. And as time goes by, he doesn't get much prettier. But Nier doesn't tell just the story of this one man living his life. No, instead it tells the story of a man trying to save his daughter and going to the greatest lengths to do so. In 2003, the Cavia-developed Drakengard was released, followed in 2005 by Drakengard 2. The gameplay style of Nier is similar to both of these, as you play a third-person behind action game with RPG elements, including health and magic points. You can either attack, use some type of attack magic, defend, jump, roll, as well as use items. Your weapons, starting with one-handed swords and growing to include both two-handed swords and spears, can also be upgraded, assuming you can find the necessary materials to do so. To progress the story, you speak with various inhabitants of the world, going from place to place, fighting enemies between villages, and doing quests, the majority of which are optional for various characters. One other common complaint is the amount of backtracking required in this game. However, there are approximately a dozen major areas in this game, and moving between the furthest points takes much less than 10 minutes on average, 2 areas are fairly long, but they are not the norm, and since you go through them multiple times, depending on how many optional quests you do, you can move through them rather quickly. Because of the small number of unique areas, backtracking in a 12 to 45 plus hour game is of course going to occur, so I don't see this as a big issue. The game features 4 endings, however the game is split into 2 parts, and you start near the beginning of the second part on subsequent playthroughs. The last 2 endings involve different choices at the very end of the game, right near the final boss. So you really only have to play the game 1.5 times, and then you can play the last 2 battles twice, and you'll be able to see all 4 endings, which I definitely recommend. You should at least see the first 2 endings, if nothing else. Nier is, in some ways, a spiritual successor to the Drakengard games, with some even considering this part of a trilogy. Indeed, the story of Nier is rather good and reminiscent of the Drakengard games, which featured some pretty good story, in my opinion. As mentioned above, the story tells a tale of a man seeking to save his daughter, and in the process gains companions and discovers a deeper truth about the world. This deeper nature of the world is especially clear when you start on the path of the second ending, and results in additions to the major plot elements. One could argue, in fact, that without playing at least through the second ending, you can't really understand the story that Cavia is told here. So again, I definitely recommend you play through it twice. Since the game was attacked on its fishing component, it's worth a mention here. Nier does feature a fishing component, which turned one game-related website off of the game completely. They just gave up approximately, 3 hours, 4 hours into the game. However, once you realize the trick to fishing in Nier, which is really just paying attention to the pole, it's pretty obvious after the first couple times when you're supposed to pull back on the joystick to have your character draw in. And you just have to pay attention to the map markers. They got stuck on one fishing components required in one part of the game, and that's where they got stuck, and it's the same thing that I got stuck on, which is I wasn't paying attention to the map. The map has a very distinctive marker on where you're supposed to go to fish. So once you realize that, it's pretty relaxing, and like real life, it can get a little boring while you're trying to catch the fish that you really want, but that's what fishing is. So keeping in mind that I enjoy Drakengard and Drakengard 2, and that I'll overlook certain elements in a game if the story makes up for it, I would give Nier a 5 of 5 stars. I only wish I had picked it up sooner, and that I would have completely disregarded the reviews that said that it was a mediocre game because I was really missing out for the last approximately a year on not playing this. So I played the Xbox 360 version of Nier, which supposedly has some advantage over the PlayStation 3 version. It was either graphical quality or there were slowdowns on the PlayStation 3. I didn't experience that with Nier at all. I clocked approximately 45 hours of gameplay. 28 were for my first playthrough, and I got to level 30, and supposedly there's 99 levels. I haven't got anywhere near that. I obtained 100% weapons, 91% quest completion, and got 37 of the 41 achievements. So there is James Skemp's review of Nier. Thanks.